Hi everyone, I'm Alex, and in this video we're going to show you the highlights from our first ever community call, which took place last Wednesday, finally, after about 2.5 years of project existence. It was really awesome, and despite the awkward timing, quite a lot of people showed up, and we spent about an hour and a half discussing our roadmap. So let's see if we are all set, and let's get started. Alex, are you recording?
Okay, I'm recording.
Good, let's go. In order to keep things more organized, we have divided our roadmap into 3 tracks: the wallet track, the infrastructure track, and the DeFi track. And in this video, we're not going to talk about the infrastructure track, even though it's mentioned in the community call, because we will release separate videos about the tasks included there, which are GhostDAC and sidechains. But let's get started first with the special repository that we created in order to record and discuss all the tasks that we have on our roadmap. Let's see what it looks like.
So let me share my screen here. And we're going to our GitHub page. And here on the GitHub page, we have several pinned repositories. And the last one here in the list, but definitely not least, is called a roadmap. It's a new repository that we have created for the purpose of managing and handling all our discussions with everyone about anything that we're doing. And if we click on this roadmap repository, first of all, you will see that the Beam roadmap draft is here. And everything that we have talked about in the video, all our plans, everything is listed here in a relatively expanded format. So I think from each section, it should be pretty clear what we're talking about. It's definitely not everything we have. It's just like the top of the list. If we scroll down to the bottom, we see here additional topics. And if you have any other topics to contribute, you can submit a pull request and edit this document by clicking on this edit button here, forking this repository, editing the document, and then clicking on the pull request. But more, I think, convenient way to do this is to go into the project section. So when I click on projects, what we've done in order to simplify things and in order to make clear what we're talking about, we have divided our development into 3 tracks: the wallet track, and the DeFi track, and also the infrastructure track. And of course, there will be some issues that are left out of each track, and we will just handle them in the backlog and assign them later, okay? So, each track has a version number assigned to it. For example, wallet track 5.1 is the version that we're currently working on. And if I click on it, I will see all the issues, the main issues, the high-level description issues that we are currently doing in 5.1, and that includes max privacy transactions, offline transactions, atomic swap improvements, and updated settings dialog. And it's just work in progress, of course. We've been doing this yesterday night, so it's very, very preliminary list, and we will add more stuff here. And as you can see, everything here is in progress. And once it's done, and basically means released to testnet, and maybe we will add another column here, like mainnet or whatever. So we will organize this clearly. Then you will be able to follow our progress on each track for each version. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about not the things that we've done, but the things we're going to do. This is the purpose of this conversation. And obviously, with this large number of people, we will not be able to discuss all the issues, but we will start setting the reference frame for the things that we're going to talk about later in future discussions within the community. So let's say, for example, in the 5.2, we have this issue of the Beam wallet and secure sync, Beam Vault, I'm sorry. And when you click on it on the right, you see there is a pane that opens, and you can click on the title and it will open in a new tab. All the links we will send to you in the community, and they're also appear in the video and in the news that we have released. Let's say you want to comment, okay? So here you can see an example of a comment. Someone whose name is something getting wrong commented 16 hours ago, and he said some things. And I can like that, I can say, yeah, cool, or I can say no, or I can say love, or anything like that, or I can create a new comment here. Okay, just type some stuff, click on comment, and your comment will appear, okay? And then what will happen is that, as you can see, this is basically an issue. And this issue has an assignee. Right now is this general Mimblewimble user, which is me. But in the future, we will assign, when we start working on that, we will assign this issue to somebody who will be the feature owner. And this person, the developer, will be responsible for monitoring the issues that he was assigned to and monitoring the discussions, answering the questions, and also organizing all these discussions into something coherent. And with each newsletter each week, we will publish the summaries of these discussions so that you can monitor what we've been talking about all together, even though you're not monitoring maybe the Beam community channel all the time, or you missed a couple of hours because you were like sleeping or taking a swim in the pool. Everything will be organized like that. Another important thing you can do is create a new issue. You can go to the Issues tab, which is to the left here, and you can click on New Issue. And here you can type your suggestion. Like, for example, I want, I don't know, Beam something, whatever. And then you basically can assign me, which is BMW. You can assign this person. Or you can assign no one, but then we will probably not see it. And then you can also assign, I think, the project where you want to talk about this. So we're talking right now about wallet track 5.2, right? So this will be assigned here. But if you don't do that, it will just appear in the general list of issues, which we will review every once in a while and reassign all the issues to different places. Okay? And then when you click on Submit New Issue, of course, you should enter here all the details of what you're talking about, as you know, as detailed and specific as possible, so that we don't guess like, I don't know, I want MixNet integration. What MixNet? Which is MixNet? Like if you can put links here of what you're talking about or things like that. I would avoid using this space for general questions like when Moon or I don't know, is Beam a proof of work coin, or what is when next fork, or stuff like that. So it's not for questions, it's more for suggestions, improvements, ideas, and all the beautiful things that we have a lot in our communities, and not all of them are getting proper attention. So that's gonna change, all right? So this is the additional thing that you should do. What else? So here in the wiki, we will publish all these summaries. So each week, not each week, each month we will have a call, but between the calls, every week we have these newsletters that we publish, and all the things that are related to roadmap-related discussions, it will have a separate section, Beam Roadmap, and it will also appear here as the summary. So this week we discussed issues 1, 2, 3, okay, and stuff like that. Now, if you notice here in the document itself, we have links. Gus invented these links, I think, and when you click on this link, you get to the issue that describes this topic. So you click on max privacy and you get to the issue that describes max privacy. Right now, it's not very interesting because it's a copy paste of the same content, but if there is a discussion here, you will see what is being said about it. Unfortunately, in GitHub, you cannot comment on the document itself. You can only do pull requests. But we think it's very, very convenient to have this link, so you can just click on anything and immediately you can see the status of the issue, like it's open right now or in progress, when it was last updated, how many comments it has, and so on. First thing that I would like to discuss, the ability to sync wallets on different devices using the same seed. Who here, whom I see, okay, I see a little bit is activated. Yeah, so who thinks it's a good feature? Guys, shut up. Yeah, okay, so somebody definitely does. Okay, so let's talk about that. If we take all this information in the wallet and we send it to another wallet directly, like peer-to-peer style, right? We can like try, I don't know, maybe connect them somehow. It's a problem, right? So it's not very simple to do. It requires some configuration. So the other thing we can do, we can send it via SBBS. We can take this information and send it as SBBS message from wallet to another. it's a nice approach, but the problem here is that your personal information that only you need to receive is actually distributed across all nodes in the network, which is completely unnecessary. It overloads the network unnecessarily. It's not something that everyone should be required to receive, basically. But we can do that. Let's call it option number 1. Option number 2 is what we call Beam Vault. It's basically the centralized service, which is trustless, so it doesn't keep any secrets, but it's centralized. It runs on the server somewhere. You connect your wallet to that service. Maybe we'll have several such services. Anyone can run it. Maybe even receive fees for running it. And then you connect your 2 wallets to the same service. They have the same wallet ID, obviously, because they have the same seed. And then you click sync, and all the information from your wallet is sent to the central server, and then pulled from your other wallet, and now they're synchronized. And this service stores this information. It's always online, and it stores this information indefinitely. So you can, at any time you want, just click and receive the state of another wallet. It's a nice approach. It's very simple to implement. It's relatively secure, everything is completely encrypted, but it's centralized. And being centralized, we don't like centralized, we like decentralized. So obviously, but that's option number 2. Option number 3, Vladi, who is our resident genius, he invented a way to put some additional information inside the bulletproof. So he basically found some additional bytes in the bulletproof that can be used for storing information. It's not a lot of bytes, it's a little bit of bytes, but they're there. And it doesn't increase the size of the transaction or the kernel or the UTXO or whatever. So we can use this information to save some identifier of the transaction, but obviously not all the metadata in the wallet. And the benefit of this approach is that it's completely decentralized. It doesn't require any centralized service. It doesn't require basically anything. When the wallet pulls the information from the blockchain, inside each UTXO, it says which transaction it belongs to, and probably some additional metadata, like some short label, maybe the date, of course, when this transaction was sent, and stuff like that. This is the best approach from the decentralization and point of view, but it's a little bit limited. So if you want, for example, an extended note, like this is my payment to my grandmother, and this is the number of the receipt she sent me, you will not be able to store and transfer this information to the other wallet, but it will show your transactions. So basically, the transaction information will be synchronized, the fact that you had the transaction with specific value, but all the other information, the address that you used, and all the nodes will not be synchronized. How important is it to have this information? This brings us to another topic, which also appears, but I will tie these two together because it's discussion that's somehow related, is the address book. So we had the address book in the Beam wallet from the very beginning, but nobody used it almost because, you know what? Let me ask first. Please raise hands using this Zoom feature. How many people use the address book once? 1. I see. Anyone else? 2. Nick used. Zayats used. You are QA. Of course, you used everything. You used every feature. I hope. Okay, not a lot of people. So, and the reason for that was because we used mostly one-time or expiring SBBS addresses. So you just click on receive dialog, copy the address, send it over, and you forget about it. And it does not happen often that you really need to send something to the same guy using the same non-expiring token or address again and again. So that's why it wasn't really used. And every time we said, let's fix this thing, somebody said, yeah, but nobody's using it, so let's put it away, But now we have a new type of transactions, which is max privacy transactions, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. And there you have, it doesn't matter if you have permanent address or vouchers or whatever we call it, there you can send funds to someone who is offline, right? So you are not sending, or they are not sending you the token so you can, or the address that you can send the funds over. So it probably will be more convenient to use the address book in these scenarios, okay? So let's say somebody says, listen, can you please pay me like, I don't know, 100 Beam that you owe me, and I'm offline, I'm diving at some remote place. So you open the wallet, you find his name, you don't have to remember where he sent you the token once or the address. I'm sorry, I will have to stop saying token. It's just this bad habit. So the address, you don't have to look through your Telegram, like find just you find them in the address book and you say, oh, here is Nikolai Vladimirovich, who is doing I don't know what right now, but never mind. Here is this Nikolai guy. Let's send him some beam, and let's just click send from the address book, and that's it, right? So the address book becomes more usable this way. And if the address book becomes more usable, maybe there is a reason to have Beam Vault and to synchronize stuff in more centralized but more expanded way, because then the address book will be synchronized as well. UI for confidential assets. It's a little bit of a debate about this topic because we have confidential assets and you can create them today using the command line wallet, and you can trade them and you can do anything you want. But there is one problem: nobody's really doing that right now. There are no actual assets used on Beam for some reason. So of course, it will be much more easier to use them if you have UI, but on the other hand, if you have empty UI and we have invested a lot of time on developing it instead of other things, that's not going to help anyone. So basically, we are conflicted here whether to develop the UI for the assets themselves or instead wait until we have more stuff in the DeFi track that we're going to talk about in a minute, but then create the unified experience that will have the assets and the DeFi applications in one place. And then we will not have to design the asset screens and then develop DeFi and then redesign the asset screens to support DeFi. So we will not have to work twice, okay? So that's an open question that we're debating. And if you have opinions on this question, please submit it in this issue here, which is called Wallet UI for confidential assets. Okay. So other stuff here is pretty self-explanatory. Trezor T, we will release it. It's finished. We can even put it here. It's not really even a question whether we're going to develop it. Trezor has said that they're not going to merge us in. We're also working on Ledger. Ledger is simpler because it's applications that you can install on your device. Ledger X, right, Guy? Ledger X, the new one. The old one cannot handle our cryptography, unfortunately, or very slow. Yeah, so I hope that we will be also able to release that, but this is always like, it will take some time. It's work in progress for a long time and probably will take some more time to develop. Swaps with BSV, BCH dash is also something that we already have done. Yes, Sasha Abramovich has a question.
I think that you are, you think that you are sharing your screen.
You're right. I think that I'm sharing my screen. I'm just moving stuff from one column to another. But it doesn't really matter. You know what? No, it does matter. Let's do this. Okay. What I've done, I basically pointed at the feature, at the issues and moved them to the in progress column. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So everything else here is very, very self-explanatory, and you can just add your comments here. And if we will add more stuff to this track, of course, we will publish the updates in our channels. Okay. So if this is all I have for the wallet track right now. We also have the backlog. Before I skip to DeFi and go into the heavy stuff, I would just want to mention that some features that are not yet decided where they're going to go, like this is clearly a wallet track, but we're not sure that we're going to be working on that in 5.2. And we didn't still set up projects for 5.3 because it's still a little bit far away. We still have to release the 5.1 and then 5.2 and all that stuff. So moving on to DeFi. Okay. So here's the thing. I will stop sharing because it's not necessary, and then I can see you and look straight to the camera. We were talking about different types of applications that use the idea of scriptless scripts. So what it means is that you have several wallets, several people with wallets. And these people communicate with each other, let's say, using SBBS system. And then they agree on some financial operations. Let's take the simplest example that I can find is something like futures contract or binary options contract, doesn't matter. I think Bitcoin is going to go up and somebody thinks it's going to go down and want to have a contract that kind of presents this opinion of ours. What we can do, we can exchange information just like we do in swaps. Somebody offers a contract, somebody takes a contract, right? And then we can create a laser beam channel, for example, that locks some collateral, some beams from each side, and then we start playing. So there is some oracle out there which says at every given time, what is the price of Bitcoin? And then if the price goes up, then I'm winning and somebody has to pay me money. And if it goes down, I'm losing and I have to pay money. And in certain cases, like perpetual swaps is a little bit twisted futures contract, which is perpetual, meaning it does not have a specific expiration date. And if somebody wants to get out of the contract, we can either settle at this point and both close this contract, or we can, one of the sides can sell the contract to someone else, basically find a counterparty that will be willing to take over the contract for them, and they will be out of the game with some winnings or some losings or whatever. So that's the point of this architecture. And what it means is that all the communications are done off-chain. All the calculations are done off-chain. The oracles are off-chain. They just send information to the wallet, and I'm looking at that, I'm saying, yeah, that sounds like the correct price of Bitcoin. Just like when you go to an exchange, a centralized exchange, you see the price on the screen and you believe it because you see it on the exchange screen. Maybe you compare it with something else or other exchange or maybe CoinMarketCap or whatever, but basically when you trade, you are relying on the price that the exchange shows you. So something similar is going on here. In the wallet, you have the current price of Bitcoin, which is sent to you from one or several oracles, which send it to you through SBBS. Of course, this information is signed. You trust these oracles. When you create a contract together, you agree with the other party that you use the same oracles together. Because if somebody thinks that the price of Bitcoin is X and the other one thinks that it's Y, then of course they will not be able to communicate. And once all this negotiation is done and calculation is done, basically only the settlement happens on chain. And it can also happen in several ways. We can, for example, we agree, like we both agree that the price of Bitcoin went up $100 and we can settle. We don't need anything for that. We don't need even oracles for that if we both agree on that. If we don't agree on that, now we have a problem. So we will say, let the oracle co-sign this transaction, and here's how we get to the multisig or any other ideas. Because, like, for example, the oracle may be able to arbitrate between us, like say, yes, you're winning, I will sign for you. If you're losing, I will sign for the other guy, and then you will be forced to lose money on this trade. But in any case, everything is here is P2P. It's like peer-to-peer. Like it can be two people, maybe three people in the same transaction, maybe more, but it's like specific people. There is no smart contract functionality behind this. Okay, that was the first architecture. This is roughly what Andrew Poelstra was talking about when he was talking about scriptless scripts in the very, very beginning of Mimblewimble in 2017. I think it was very, very, very early days. There is some cryptography involved on this like settlement process, how it works. Our atomic swaps, in a way, work in a similar fashion, but that's the architecture that we were thinking about first. And we can implement quite a lot of interesting applications which involve peer-to-peer trading. Just like we have atomic swaps, we can do other things similar to that. People find offers, accept them, and trade. But of course, there are a lot of things that we cannot do. We cannot do things like compound. We cannot create these liquidity pools that gain you interest on your investments. There are a lot of limitations, let's say, to this idea. So recently, we've been talking about that, and once again, Vladi came with this thought that we can actually use very interesting feature of Mimblewimble, the kernels that in the transaction that you have the inputs, the outputs, and the kernels kind of represent all the metadata in the transaction in addition to technical things like differences in the blinding factor, etc. But we also added a lot of like minimum height, maximum height, all this stuff. And the kernel can actually do something like that. We can take an input. So I'm sending the transaction, and I choose some UTXOs in my wallet, and I'm sending it to someone or to something, as I will explain in a minute. And what this operation does, it takes these inputs and then creates a specific kernel which says, listen, your inputs are now locked in a way that they destroy, they disappear, they're consumed by this kernel. But instead of creating outputs like in a regular transaction, what we're doing, we're taking some variable inside the node, some like this place inside the node, and we assign it some value. So for example, I'm creating this variable that I will explain in a minute what it means. I'm sending 100 beams, so this UTXO of 100 beams is gone, and now there is inside each node in the entire network, there is a variable which says Alex has 100 beams here. And if you think about it, that's exactly how Ethereum works, right? How the account-based model works. You have something somewhere which says this guy, whoever he is, it's anonymous, it's whatever, has 100 beams. And if we take a lot of these variables, a lot of these small boxes with some beams, and we combine them together into something, and we call it a contract, and then we take some script, some ability to create conditions or maybe decisions or whatever, like you have in Solidity or Bitcoin script. There are a lot of examples. Some are Turing complete, some are not Turing complete, whatever. But if we attach the script, we basically have these beam contracts. So we call it beam contracts. And this script that we're going to invent, we invented that we're going to invent the script. So we're working on inventing the script right now. It's going to be called beam script. And suddenly you have this transition from the confidential cryptocurrency, which is UTXO based, into account-based confidential cryptocurrency that can do some interesting things with these variables. For example, this contract can create new assets, like emit new types of assets. Okay, so register a contract. How do you create a new type of asset today? You just register, you lock 3,000 beam, and you get the ID of the new type, and now you can emit your new, let's call it like Alex token. I could create any amount of Alex tokens and send them around. They're not worth anything, but it's fun, right? So I can do that. But if the contract has this ability, like instead of creating the type of asset, I'm creating the type of contract, and now the contract can create or emit these new assets itself based on certain conditions. What I'm getting to is basically the idea of compound, right? You put in collateral and then you get some tokens back, like C something. I put DAI and then I get C DAI back, right? Something like that. And this combined together with the idea of scriptless scripts and this stuff together creates the entire scope of our like infrastructure that we can create to basically allow applications, DeFi applications of various kinds to be created. Do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
With such scripts, the Beam scripts, would it be possible, for instance, to issue a confidential asset that, for example, would only have like a 1 decimal place?
It's not exactly like that. So it's a different question. If you are, let's say the script will probably be able to do anything that the user is able to do. Right now, I think we can control the number of decimal places, and I think we can set it to 1. I'm not 100% sure. But what we cannot do, for example, we cannot create non-fungible tokens. Like you have, I don't know, your baseball cards or whatever you're trading, polo cards, I don't know what you play in different places. So anyway, Harry Potter is everywhere. Harry Potter cards, and you want to encode them in assets, and you want to send them from wallet to wallet. So we cannot do that at all. And it's not even simple to create because of the Mimblewimble structure. You need the UTXOs to be able to cut through, and you cannot cut through Hermione or whatever her name was, or Harry Potter card. So yeah, so the contract will be probably able to do anything the user can do with the assets. Emit new assets, transfer them from place to place, assign percentages, you know, distribute, you know, what's it called, dividends, right? So all that will be handled in the contract. So why am I saying all that? I'm saying all that because all the discussions about this is going to be here in this task, number 12, which is called Beam Contract POC. And what we're doing right now, what Vlad is doing in these days, he is building this small proof of concept of this idea. Basically taking a different branch, and we are creating this small model of this functionality. And of course, we will need APIs to probably access all these features, right? So the applications should use these APIs just like in Ethereum, you can, you know, call the contract and do stuff. And I think there will be a lot of action in this area in the next couple of months. So if you are into DeFi, this is, I think, the hottest topic to monitor, okay? All right, so let's see what else we have. We talked about oracles. Of course, when we have contracts, we can no longer use these simple oracles that just send information to the wallet. We need to have proper oracles that inject information into the blockchain itself. And the way it works in Ethereum with Link, for example, which is crazy. I don't understand why it's like so crazy about Link. It's just oracles that send stuff and then average it in the contract, but whatever. I don't understand a lot of things, but basically it's the same idea. You have very sound and trustworthy sources, several of them. You put them all in some contract that can average them, I don't know, drop outliers or whatever the processing that they're doing, and then uses these information from these oracles to allow contracts to make decisions, right? So if some contract needs to know what is the current price of Bitcoin at this very moment, this is how it gets its information. It's basically a transaction or several transactions that are injected into the blockchain and store this information. And of course, we might integrate with Link directly, or we might do some stuff of our own. This is something we talked to Link, by the way. It's very possible to integrate that. They require payments for their services, but it's actually very simple to implement, because in our transactions, you can just, you know, assign additional fee. Like one part of the fee goes to the miner and the other part of the fee goes to whoever provides some information like that this transaction depends on. That's possible to implement. Still a lot of nuances to think about, but it's a possibility. So this is what oracles are about, and we're going to add more information there. We did some research, but that will probably take some time. Perpetual swaps app. So this is something that also we're talking about and thinking how to do this. The one problem, unsolved problem currently that we have with the implementing. So one second, before that. Of course, all these contracts, even if we had it today developed, but we don't, it will take time. But even if we had it, it would require a fork to enable this functionality, obviously. So we started thinking, is there something in DeFi that we can do before the fork, right? And we thought that we can probably implement some kind of basic trading app like perpetual swaps or something similar. And make it, you know, like maybe in a separate trading wallet, you know, make this, or maybe in a web wallet, so do some very basic stuff that you can start trading before like the next fork, which will be probably in a couple of like months, 3-4 months, maybe the earliest. And the answer is yes, we can do something. There's one unsolved problem there, as I mentioned, which is what happens if one of the people wants to, you know, disappear from the contract. Like we close the contract, then one of the players suddenly says bye-bye and, you know, shuts down the wallet and goes away. Of course, we need some kind of punishment mechanism, some kind of incentive to trade fairly. And the only way to achieve that is basically by locking some additional collateral that will serve as this punishment in addition to the collateral used in the trade. So it's a little bit complicated to do specifically in Laserbeam, but it's solvable, right? It's not critically complicated, but it's a little bit touchy, just like the atomic swaps. Like you have these timing issues and, you know, you have to time transactions and then cancel them, and you have to set conditions on the kernels, never mind. But we can do that, but it will take time. It will take time from the core developers. It will take time from the product people. It will take time from QA. It will take a lot of time. And in the end, what we will have this basic trading application inside Beam Wallet or inside a separate wallet that we will build for this purpose. So that's an open question whether we should do it. So if you have an opinion on that, like you say, you know what, forget about it, just concentrate on the proper DeFi with contracts and everything, do that, and then we will think about what to do next. Or if you say, no, let's do the application. I want to trade Beam now. I don't care how it's like implemented, if you have contracts or not. So this is something that opinions that you can express about this topic of perpetual swaps app. And we have a little bit like of a divided. So first of all, this thing, the contract thing will go on regardless, right? The question is that whether we should do the application on instead of some wallet features, instead of, I don't know, improving the address book or something like that, or maybe other stuff, or creating UI for confidential assets. Bridges to Ethereum. It's closely related to swaps with Ethereum, but the bridges allow you to basically lock some value on Ethereum, get it as a representation, wrapped asset on Beam, trade it confidentially, and then move it back. It's an amazing thing, right? It's basically, it's a killer feature. So at first we thought about making this centralized or federated, right? So you have like a federation of owners for the same bridge, and then they all sign this transaction that moves funds from Ethereum to Beam and then back again. But we think we might have a good solution for, once again, it's still in research, but we might be able to create this in a decentralized way. So basically it's the same idea that you have Fly client or SPV client on Ethereum that can understand the state of Beam chain. And each Beam node is able to understand the state of specific contracts on Ethereum chain. And then you can do these movements. So this is very complicated topic, but I just wanted to say that we are working on that. Like, I mean, these days we were kicking it again, like after we worked on the centralized solution, then we put it aside because we decided it was not good enough and did a lot of other things like hardware wallets. It's just two same developers worked on these two subjects. And now we are bringing it back into focus, the Ethereum bridges, and we will continue to develop this, this topic. So there will be updates there in the near future. So stay tuned on that. If we manage to do that, it's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be something else. Yeah, or when we manage to do that. Okay, so the last topic I would like to talk about is the offline payments. Offline payments, as you know, it's like one of the oldest issues of Mimblewimble, that it's interactive, requires sender and receiver to sign the transaction together. And it's a major pain point in a lot of different things. Like, for example, integration with existing wallets. If we were like more compatible with Bitcoin, we will already be integrated probably in some well-known wallets that are out there and have hundreds of thousands of users. But as of now, we are not integrated, and that's because it's very difficult to take Mimblewimble and, you know, pull it on the old Bitcoin, you know, sign transactions and transaction model. It's not possible. And we did a lot of stuff to try to overcome that, and we created the wallet service. But now that we have this offline payment thing, it basically works in a much more similar way to Bitcoin. You can just take some money and send them to some address, and that's it, you're done. As a sender, you're done, you don't care anymore. And the usual way to do it is to create some address, right? I create some address and I give it to you. All of you, maybe at once, maybe I publish it on the website, or I just put it in some chat, and then you can take it at your leisure. You can send me funds, right? But there are two problems in the specific implementation of how it works. It works using the Lelantus shielded pool, in our case. There are two problems there. So first problem is that you're anonymous, right? Nobody knows who you are, right? So if two people, you send the same token to two people, the same address to two people, they can later come together and say, oh, who is this address? Oh, that's Alex's. I thought his name was John. And then they realize that in the other life I have another name and it's John, right? So it's a problem. So you say, what's the problem? Just create a new address for the new guy and create a new address every time. And here we come to this complication that in the Lantus, it's not such a simple thing. So you have to scan the entire blockchain for this specific address every time. And if you have a lot of addresses like that and you don't know which of them are used and which of them are not used. So for example, I gave somebody an address and 6 months later he sent me some funds. I have to scan this address because if I don't, I will never see that I received these funds. It doesn't exactly work like in Bitcoin. It's not like hierarchical key derivation when I can scan for all the addresses that they send out. In Melantus, it's a little bit different. And we don't want these addresses to accumulate. There are some kind of workarounds. I have older addresses and new addresses, and maybe older ones, I scan them every once in a while, and the newer ones I scan more often. There are optimizations that we can do, but that's the first problem, let's say. The second problem, in addition to being able to compare. And the third problem is that the sender can see when I spend the funds. When I take them out of the pool, the sender can see in this case that I did that. He doesn't know who or what or who I'm sending to, anything, just the fact that he put some money in the pool for me and I took it. That's the three disadvantages of this method. The second method, which we did implement in 5.1, works a little bit differently. You do create a one-time address. It's called a voucher. But you create a limited amount, like let's say, I don't know, 20. Why? Because they're big. If you want to copy paste, it's like very large piece of text that you copy instead of relatively short address. But then if I give somebody these 20 vouchers, you can send me 20 payments. And then if you run out of vouchers, you cannot send offline payments anymore. You have to ask for new vouchers. And we also build the feature into the wallet, which automatically asks for new vouchers if I'm online. So if I'm online and somebody had got some vouchers from me, they can contact me directly, like no user intervention required. Automatically, the wallet says, listen, I'm running out of your vouchers, give me more vouchers. So it sounds complicated, all these vouchers at 20 and sizes and stuff like that, but it has the advantage of, first of all, it's unique voucher each time, so no anonymization possible whatsoever. The sender does not see when I spend the funds. Basically, when you put the funds in the pool for me, you cannot even see when I take it. Like you cannot see anything about it. It's the second advantage. So it's much more secure in this way. But it has the disadvantage that you are not able to use this in certain use cases which are important for a lot of people. Like for example, donations. I want to publish an address on my website and now everybody can donate Beam to me. Or I want to receive offline payments from the pool and they send whenever they want, and I don't want to be online at, I don't know, night when it's like day in China or whatever. So I want to give them an address and forget about it, and they will just send funds there. And initially we went with the more, let's say, like more secure, more like P2P approach. But then a lot of people came and said, wait, what? Like you're doing offline payments and now it works not like in Bitcoin? Like what's the point? So we have this option, which is not open, by the way, on the board right just yet. I will open it immediately, to create this, I don't know what to call it, infinite address, or the the usual Bitcoin style address for offline payments using Lelantus. But you have to be aware that there are these limitations or these issues with it, that it's a little bit less private in a way, like it's nuanced, but that's the point. And this is something that we're also thinking about. Okay, I'm done talking. Questions, anyone?
There are some questions in the chat.
Questions in the chat. Let's open the chat. How does one get a voucher? Yeah, it's very simple. Let me find this screenshot. 1 second. This is the receive dialog in the new version, in the 5.1. Can everyone see that in decent resolution? Yeah. So you can see here on the left in the transaction info, you have a switch. which allows you to select between regular and max privacy transactions. And when you select max privacy transaction, you have two types of, it still says token, but it's not token anymore, it's address. You have two types of addresses. You have the online address and the offline address. The online address is just for, when the wallets communicate, but this one, the offline, it's much longer. And when you copy it, you can send it to someone via any messenger that you are using. And then they are able to send you up to 20, I think by default, 20 offline payments. Like you are offline and they can send you 20 payments. So this is how you get the vouchers. It's automatically added to the address that you copy once you select this option of the offline address. Let's see if we have more questions. Thoughts of plan attract uses DeFi platform. I will talk about that in 1 minute. It's a great question. We have excelled on building phase, but we suck at marketing. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Media plan, role to information out. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the Q&A and answer the difficult questions because building stuff is simple. Anyway, yeah, we suck at marketing. Everybody knows that. We're trying a lot. We're doing a lot of stuff. In general, there are three ways we're going to act in, like 3 different directions. The first direction is information, spreading it, talking about it, getting into DeFi conversation. We have announced that we're doing DeFi, and now we're showing that we're actually doing DeFi and not just announcing it. And once we get the first results, we will show that we have this new direction. And I believe that with the current DeFi boom that we have, they will get to the issue of confidentiality eventually, especially for more serious applications. And I think Beam will be able to provide a lot of it. And without going into details, we start hearing like these voices that say, oh, if only I could confidentially trade my DAI or whatever, right? We do hear these things. So it's not like we invented it, something that nobody needs. So that's the first way, the first track to spreading the information and trying to find the best way in, like best use cases, best go-to-market strategy, they call it in a professional language, right? What is the simplest thing, the fastest thing we can do to stake our claim in this area and to get immediate results, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is attracting developers. Attracting developers means documentation, which we also suck at, APIs, examples of stuff, right? So the minute we have something working in the context sphere, we need to start building community around it, because the community is not only just doing things, it's also contributing back a lot of feedback what doesn't work for us, so that we can learn faster. The same goes for applications. So I have recently asked to create a version where you can send any SBBS message, for example, and then you can create small Python scripts that play with the wallet APIs and send SBBS messages to one another. And thus you can create small models of different DeFi applications, right? Which work on the same basis as the swaps. So basically you have some agreement and you accept it, and then you create the channel or whatever. So in order to practice or to be able to build these things, and we can provide these SDKs, and I'm working on that personally, and also with the other developers. Yeah, once the revolution in their country or whatever is going on there is completed. It's crazy, by the way. Whoever knows what's going on in Belarus, take a look. There is a lot of action there. So that's the second way: attract developers and attract, people that can and want to contribute, not necessarily to the Beam core, but that would be awesome as well, but to building the infrastructure around it. And the third direction that we're talking is basically architecture, right? So these days I'm working with few guys, one from the States, one from Ukraine, and we talk about different architectures in terms of how these applications that we want to implement, how we can implement them, right? So do we need to create new tokens for this or not? Like how this is going to work? So basically it's a lot of work designing this DeFi infrastructure, how it will be used. Why is this important? It's important because we now have to determine the optimal path, right? What to develop, okay? So let's say, for example, we want to create a confidential stablecoin. Just for example, you know, crazy thought, right? So guy here is dreaming about it. Like every night he wakes up and says, confidential stablecoin. And the way to do that is basically we can either create this structure of CDP, right? Collateralized debt positions like the real MakerDAO is doing, and just implement our own coin. That probably will work, but we still have to market that and bring a lot of people to use it and things like that. We can bridge from Ethereum the actual DAI and move it to Beam and trade it there. We can do both. We can do something else. We can do compound. We can do synthetics, right? We can trade Facebook stock on Beam confidentially or whatever. In order to understand what to do, right? And this is like a major challenge. And I have like, every time I talk in the community about that, I get a lot of new like ideas, and Karan Patel is contributing a lot of thoughts and other people. So this is very important for us now to focus our efforts in a specific direction, because, okay, let's say we do have 2 or 3 components. We have oracles, we have contracts. Now what, right? How do we move this over? So these are 3 directions that I can think about of, let's say, call it marketing or, you know, adoption of the Beam DeFi infrastructure. I hope that answers the question. Any other questions? Yeah. Guy, want to say something?
I want to add that there are, as Romanov said, several killer use cases. You know, everyone wants to have a true confidential stable coin, either confidential Tether or confidential algorithmic stable coin. Everyone wants to have ability to trade synthetics, instrument that follow gold or follow Facebook or whatever. So we will get there. We are just building the infrastructure now, as Romanov laid out the several options. And then on top of that, we will start building the application. Some of those features will come from bridges. For example, DAI over Beam, and some will be built natively. And then the real fun will begin, because then we'll have enough ammunition in place to start building our own trading app. So think, for example, as permissionless Robinhood. Yeah, everyone can download it, fund it through whatever cryptocurrency, and then have all the instruments that Robinhood has with the same nice user experience. So we will get there. It will take some time, but we will do that. And everything, of course, is confidential and private.
Partnerships. Yeah, there is a question about partnerships here. We are talking to a lot of different projects on a lot of different things. There is nothing very specific that we can talk about right now, but once we have it, of course, we will announce any partnership that we really close.
Is there any way you can send out, do you have some kind of a partnership docket where you can send something out so that people can write to you in such a way that maybe a corporate firm can connect with Beam and implement all of your technology within the architecture?
First of all, sure. We have all the general, you know, info at Beam or whatever, support at Beam or Alex at Beam, everything will work. We did not yet send the like call for partnership, like Beam looking for partners. We didn't send that yet because from the DeFi perspective, we're relatively on the early stages. So even if there are partners, they will probably require some time. But one thing that we are talking to partners right now about is the integration with the wallets. And this is actually something that we can use help in, because we have created this wallet service and these several ideas. And now we have these new types of one-side payments. So maybe we can use that to be able to integrate into the existing like Jax or whatever wallets or any other trust wallet or maybe others. So this is something that we are doing right now. We're contacting these wallets, and we we say, could you integrate Beam now that we have the infrastructure for it? Because we had one cycle of talks about that a year and something ago. Feels like 10 years, but then we didn't have enough infrastructure to do that, and we couldn't, merge our Mimblewimble into their model. It was too simplistic for us.
Thank you.
The status of Laserbeam. Laserbeam is working. We did not create UI for it because we don't think it's really usable just like as it is right now. There are two directions that we can expand the Laserbeam into. Both of them, like one of them I don't like, the other one I do like. The one I do like is using Laserbeam to create channels for DeFi applications, like I mentioned, the perpetual swaps. Why is it? It's very nice. You lock the collateral, 1 minute later you have a channel, and then you can trade instantly, do any amount of transactions between the two, and then 5 minutes later you close the channel, you settle, and you're done. Like it's the perfect tool for these kinds of applications. The only thing you do need is manage all this transaction logic in the wallet. But this is like, for example, perpetual swaps application that I have described is completely based on the Laserbeam channel. But if you are a CLI user, it works today and you can use it. The second direction we can take it is towards the Lightning Network. A year and something ago, I said Lightning Network doesn't work. Everybody shouted at me and said, you don't understand anything. And then somehow like the Lightning Network was all the buzz. And then a year later, nobody talks about Lightning Network. So we forgot about it all. Because of the routing issues. So the routing is very difficult. The entire channel should be funded. It doesn't really work. It's very unreliable. So I don't know. There is a hub and spoke architecture. We have large hubs that have a lot of funds that can finance a lot of channels, but then they have to lock twice the collateral. It doesn't really work, and they're not paid enough for that. So yeah, that's the status of Laserbeam. It's there, it's working. It's not used yet. It might be used here or here.
All right. Hello, Alex.
Hi.
Yeah, so I was thinking with Beam scripts, would it be possible to have liquidity providers for swaps between confidential assets and Beam?
Yeah, it's something that I think I didn't explain enough, or we didn't explain it well, because everybody thinks that confidential assets and Beam, they need swapping. You do not need swaps. Because the confidential asset, it's basically just like Beam, only with the different number in there in the creation, but otherwise it's just like Beam. You can use it seamlessly in the same transaction. In the same transaction, you can send any number of assets and Beam together in one transaction. You basically just take a lot of inputs, put them together. So if I would like to send to you, let's say we have 5 assets and Beam. So I can take and create one transaction which sends to you 300 Beam, 500 asset A, 300 asset B, 2 asset C in one transaction, boom, and then send it to you, no problem. No, and if I want to exchange, I send you 5 Beam and you give me 1 asset, we do it in one transaction. No swaps required, no waiting. It's instant, immediate, built into the wallet. 1 click, 1 minute later, the exchange happened. Yeah?
To follow up on that, I think what Agbona was asking more was to do with like the liquidity pools for providing liquidity on either side of such a transaction, and to have so that you can just go in and go out, similar I think to Uniswap. Agbona, is that kind of what you?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So like a liquidity pool. So you actually provide other use case for Beam. So you can actually, I don't know how, like the swap model, something similar to that, basically.
Yeah, the answer is yes. That definitely would be possible. That's the whole point of these contracts, is to be able to accumulate funds and then distribute them with dividends and use them as liquidity for different trades, whether it's lending, like in Compound, whether it's insurance, whether it's leverage, for example, or whatever. So yeah, that's the point. Exactly that. The reason I was triggered before is because you used the word swap, and I recently had this conversation, so that's why I jumped into like, no, it's not swaps. But yeah, now I understand your question. Thank you, Gus.
Like, I mean, as we know, Ethereum is Turing complete, and Beam is not. But with something like this, would it be possible to create some of the stuff like flash loans? Do you know flash loans?
Yeah.
Would it be possible with Beam script to create certain things like this, just as an example, on Beam?
The short answer is I don't know, for two reasons. Because first of all, we don't know exactly how this script would look like yet. We don't even know if we have to have it Turing complete, because the problem with so we all know the problem with the Turing complete, but the difference in concept between what we're trying to do in Beam and what is done in Ethereum is like a computer that you can write like any program on, like if you're using these things that this computer allows, the virtual machine that they're running. But outside the most basic input-output operations, it doesn't really, give you anything. You just sit down, open an editor, and you write the Solidity contract, and somebody verifies it, and you deploy it, and that's how the application is born, which is great. But the problem with that approach is that, like in many other things in programming, a lot of people implement the same ideas in different ways, right? So let's say I need collateralized debt positions like in MakerDAO. So I need to write my own code for that. Why can't I take their code? Or I don't know, because their code is specific for their purposes. And here we start to complicate things. So our idea or our concept is to create these building blocks that are targeted and specified for financial operations, like this financial Lego that everybody's talking about. But right now it's more like on a bigger scale. You take tokens from one application and forward it to another application and then third application. And then you make money, like in this meme when the guy explains this to a girl in the club. But what we're thinking about is building these smaller blocks, which are built into our node in C++, verified, tested, right? And then using our scripts. So our script becomes this kind of, let's call it domain-specific language, right, for financial applications. So of course it can do basic math, you can do 2 + 2, but let's say I would love to see operations like create CDP in our language or create liquidity pool in our language instead of for I = 1 to 100, do, and all that stuff. So that's the dream, right? So yeah, a lot of work there. I think somebody raised their hand, Hufrey Kong, and then lowered it. Yeah? You wanted to ask something? Anyone? Okay. So we have a few more minutes until, the end of this meeting.
Regarding the building blocks, I just wanted to say that, second to what Alex said, the real beauty of domain-specific language is the declarative approach. It's basically what we want to happen without and letting the inner layer to decide how it should happen. And that might bring us to almost sort of no-code approach of creating financial applications on top of Beam with all the benefits of privacy mechanism, SBBS, and other things.
Yep, I agree. I definitely agree with that. Okay, so if this is all, you all know what to do. Yeah, a little bit, all good?
Yeah, I'd like to know what you think about ASICS. Are you worried or are you looking forward to it?
So after we have upgraded to BeamHash 3, and Lolly was here like a couple of minutes ago, and then I lost him in the fog. But the idea of BeamHash 3, it's a very specifically designed algorithm that allows relatively smooth transition to ASICS if someone deems this profitable. At our current prices, at our current market cap, I do not think somebody will invest because our ASICs will be definitely not cheap. and very, very specific. I don't remember all the specifications, but it's a lot of money to design and build them. So I'm not worried about ASICS. I would love them to come because that would mean that we are now $10 per beam, at least.
I would like to add that sometimes you have surprises. You know, green just seems that the first green ASIC is coming, despite the fact that it doesn't make sense economically. But a small player, despite the fact that green price was declined, decided to continue the project. It will take them quite a lot of time to recoup the investment, but as long as they are the only ASIC provider, eventually they will. So, but put aside such surprises, I think lowly the Wilke estimation is something like 2 years from now, depending on of course on Bitcoin price. Oh, sorry, on Beam price to see ASICs arriving. And Romanov talked before about Gosdag. So we don't want to interfere with the ongoing ecosystem. So Beam chain itself will remain Nakamoto consensus, and we'll probably launch the Gosdag experiment on a sidechain or on a friendly fork. We will see, and it will have a different proof of work. So we'll be able to experiment with Beam hash free. And proof of work that Wilke will design for Gosdag. So interesting stuff ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for the answers.
Sure.
A little bit, have you got the part that Romanov talked about the SBBS vault? So eventually,
yes,
we'll get what you want.
Yes.
Trustless centralized system.
Thank you so much.
We will get what you want. There is a great question from Bimbro here. Will DeFi impact any of Mimblewimble scaling properties? So the answer is yes, it will. The question is how much and in which way. So first of all, Lilantus itself already affects scalability because it does not lend itself to cut through. You cannot cut through Lilantus. Which is why we limited it, hard capped it to 20% of the block. You cannot use Lilantus shielded outputs for more than 20% of the total of the block outputs of the 1 megabyte size. That's first thing. The second thing is the more information you need to store on the chain, right? The bigger is the chain, and the more transactions you have with more information. So yes, definitely there will be impact. If this information is in the UTXOs, in the regular Mimblewimble UTXOs, so they get cut through. If it's in the kernel and it's hidden well inside or I don't know, in the UTXO, but it's hidden inside the bulletproofs, like I mentioned, with the transaction information, so it's not a problem. But if it's this like Oracle data or any other stuff, yes, that's definitely going to affect scalability. So our goal here is to design it in a way that this trade-off is tolerable. And by the way, one of the discussions in Green Forum about Lilantus was exactly that. Like it's not cut through. Why do it? Yeah. So it depends on the perspective. All right. Anything else? So great, guys. Let me summarize and close this. Closing remarks. First of all, it's been great. It's been awesome. Thank you very much for everyone who put this up. Gus, Amir, Guy, Sasha, everyone who worked on that, and thank you for coming. I really like the numbers here. A lot of people came, and it's great. We have created this framework. It's very new for us all, and let's try to use it. Let's see how it works. Let's learn from it, and let's adapt as we go. The wheel here is very clear. A lot of people have great ideas, but they don't speak up, right? So I was having a great AMA with Africa community, and someone said, listen, why don't you put a feature that allows me to send $100 in Beam right now? Because I want to send $100. I don't know exactly how many Beam it is, so I sit with the calculator like an idiot, and I calculate how many Beams it is at this moment. And I don't want to do that. And I said, yeah, that's obvious when you say it, but we didn't think about it, right? A lot of things like that pop up, real life use cases, because we don't use Beam like we do, but we don't use Beam as real life as every one of you does, okay? There are some use cases, for example, Amir comes to me and says, listen, because I have to pay this number of people at specific date, or I don't know what, I need this feature, but nobody else does exactly that, right? So please bring your experience to the community, to us, submit issues, submit comments. We will dig through all this stuff, we'll organize it, we will contact you back, we will talk with you. So if we're doing that, let's do it right, and let's do it in an organized way, right? All right, it's time. We have to close up. Thank you very much for coming. Have a great day, night, or whatever you have there, and stay safe, stay healthy, and come back, and we'll talk like that in 1 month.
Thank you, Romanov. Great.
Thank you very much. Love you all.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining.
See you guys. Bye.
Moon is coming.
Bye-bye.
Stay tuned. Bye-bye.